your girl Wakeji Kamore, and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. Yani, I will never stop celebrating this achievement because I know how far I have come from. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is where I share my life, I share my love, and I share the word of God in the simplest way possible. Thank you so much again for coming here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for, giving me airtime in your life. So you see, last week I started a story about how I found Nairobi overwhelming and how I even got lost in Nairobi, and also compared it in the Bible with the Bible, and how sometimes the Bible can feel very overwhelming, and that sometimes we feel like it's big, like we cannot quite understand what's happening here, like we don't really know exactly what's going on. So I've brought you help and I challenged you guys to watch an 8 sessions video. And I hope you guys have started. If you guys were here, I would ask you, by show of hands, how many people have started? But because you're not here, I really do hope that you guys have started. And if you haven't started, it would be nice that you do. It is not late. It is not like until we are doing this thing together. At now we are in week 1 and we have to stay together and work together. No. Like, do it at your own pace, but please do start. I also promised you guys that I would finish the story about whether I got found, whether I started a new street life in Nairobi, whether I found my way home or whatever. So yes, stay tuned, or rather, it is coming up shortly. And if you haven't watched the video for last week, this would be a nice place for you to pause this one and go back and watch that one, then come back and watch this one. So anyway, muliniacha wapi? Muliniacha, I was lost in the city. And I just realized that there were more giant TVs than I thought. And I had lost the giant TV that I was using as a landmark. Please note, at this point, we didn't have phones. Or rather, I didn't have phones because it was Stone Age. It was this Stone Age. And phones were expensive gadgets for the chosen few. The rest of us, civilians, used to use something called Simu ya Jamii. If you're wondering what Simu ya Jamii is, because I know some of my subscribers are really young people who don't understand what Simu ya Jamii is. This used to be a phone. I don't know what to call it, like a landline phone that doesn't have a cable. I don't know whether that makes sense. Like a wireless landline phone that used to be owned by small business owners, and then they would put it like different places, like the way they are M-Pesa shops. And then you would go there and make a call and of course pay. And I could not even afford to use this Simu ya Jamii on that specific day, and I couldn't ask for direction for one reason: because of my dad. And I know you're wondering, Sasa, what has my dad has to do with anything? But let me explain to you. So my dad gave me guidelines of how to survive the city. There are many, but I'll just give you 2. Number 1, don't carry extra cash to college. Don't carry extra cash to the city. If you need bus fare and bus fare back home, carry that. Don't carry extra cash. And to help me with that, this is what my dad used to do. My dad would calculate for us, for my sister and myself. But mimi ndio nilikuwa naumia because my sister used to just we used to stay in Siwaka. My sister used to be in Strathmore, so she would just cross the road and she would be at school. Mimi, I had to take matatus, which hike fares from here to, so mimi ndio nilikuwa naumia. But anyway, let me tell you what my dad used to do. My dad used to calculate how many days of the month you need to be in college and give you transport money for just those days, no extra. So he would say, kwenda town ni 30 bob, kurudi ikiwa nini sana ni 40 bob, so kwa siku moja 70 bob times 25 days. If those are the days he has decided, those are the days you should go to college, and give you that. Of course, he would mind on Saturdays because he'd be like, no, I know people go there to do practices on Saturday. Maybe that's when you can get people to actually do blow dries on and whatever. But there are no classes happening on Saturday, so you don't have to go to school on Saturday. And on Sunday, he didn't give me money for Sunday. He said, this was his reasoning, ACK churches are everywhere. Look for one that is close to you and walk to church. And let me tell you, sometimes when I think about my dad, I know that, I mean, I was number 5. So, of course, there are many other people who had spent, other children that has spent his money. But I keep feeling he was a good cop. Like, between my mom and dad, he was a good cop. And he was still this strict with his money. Like, I don't understand. If it was my mom, but anyway, also helped that my dad was living in Sharks and I was living here. Guideline number 2. Do not, I repeat, do not ask for directions from random strangers. If you do this, 2 things will happen to you or might happen to you. Number 1, they will take you to a kachochoro and rob you. Or number 2, you might find yourself in someone's house. And this person will give you directions to their house. So anyway, on that specific day, I had limited solutions. I had limited options. I had only my bus fare with me, and I couldn't ask for directions. And when all this is happening in my mind, I'm still walking in the city. So I'm still getting more lost, and I'm still getting more amused at how fast people are walking, and they look like they know where they are going. And I'm just like hopeless. I was just like, oh my gosh, I've lost all hope. Now I think I might just have to start to become a street child. I don't know, like I just didn't know what to do. But because God is God, actually I don't know, yeah, because God is God, of course God is God. There's no doubt about that. There's no argument. There is no argument. Anyway, Emily, stop singing. Stop singing even in your head. So anyway, when I looked up, in this my hopeless state, when I looked up, the gate I saw was the gate for the University of Nairobi. So you can imagine how far I had walked, like how far lost I was. Like I wasn't anywhere near Odeon Cinema. Like I had walked, Makauko, University of Nairobi. So when I looked up and I saw the gate of University of Nairobi, I remembered one of my distant cousins actually studies there. I remember that we were kind of somewhat neighbors in Shags. So, and I remember that he had been in campus for 3 years. So I decided, mimi nitaingia kwa hii campus, I go and ask people whether they know my cousin, and then if I find him, I go and look for my cousin, and then when I find him, he will show me direction, or he will at least show me the way around the city. So ndio huyo mimi nikiingia kwa gate ya the University of Nairobi. So I'm inside there, and of course when I walk there, I'm just like, oh my God, there's so many people here. They're like, what, 1 million in my head? Of course, they were not 1 million, but in my head, in my lost head, I was like, there are so many people, there are so many young people here. Some of them look like bookworms, others look like they're here to party, some are sitting together, some are sitting by themselves, some are looking like they're just like here to have a good time. And I was just like, oh my gosh, where do I even start looking for my cousin? So I braved myself, because also I'm like a brave person. Somehow I'm like a brave person. So I braved myself and approached a group of young people. I was also very young, but they were also young. So I braved myself and I approached and I asked a question that I know now was a very stupid question. So I went and asked, do you guys know my cousin Kanore? Like, who does that? Like, who walks into a university full of people and then decides they should know their cousin? So of course, when I asked that group, a group of young people, I asked, do you guys know my cousin Kanore? Of course they looked at me. I can never forget the stares they gave me. They couldn't just figure out, like, am I daft? Am I naive? Or am I just ushamba? Like, the level of my ushamba shocked them. They were speechless. And the fact that, like, is this chick just daft? Is she naive? Is she mshamba? Like, what's happening? And to date, I know that I was all 3 at that specific time. But because God is God, because God had hajaanza kunipenda sahi, one of the dudes that was in that group of young guys asked to help me. Actually, volunteered to help me. So I said, okay. So he asked me, so do you know your cousin's full names? I told him, luckily, I knew his full names. You know, I feel like you can be a cousin with someone and you don't know their full names. Like, I don't even know my uncle's full names. Mi nawajua tu uncle. Hata wengine hata sijui wanaitwaje. Just like, that's my uncle. At the end, that's my cousin, and this is the name that we call him. I mean, if we go to Sharks and people call me Koi, sometimes the people just don't know what my baptismal name is. So, but thank God that I knew his name. As a matter of fact, I knew so much. So I knew his name, I knew that he was in third year, and I knew that he was studying electrical engineering. Oh boy, did this information come in handy. Oh my gosh, I was so happy and so lucky that I knew these things. So anyway, this dude helped me walk to the Department of Electrical Engineering, which was like, Numa, like we had to cross the road. Me, I'm like, okay, this campus is funny. Now you even have to cross the road. So is it still part of campus? I was like, this school is big. Na mimi niko college, ile iko na floor tu moja, like one floor in a building. I was just like, oh my gosh, not even the hopes of finding my cousin here just slim. But anyway, he walked me to the Department of Electrical Engineering. We started asking around. We started asking where the ideas were. Like we asked around. It took us about an hour to finally find my cousin, and oh, the joy of seeing my cousin. I had had such a long day, you guys. I was so lost and I was just feeling hopeless. And then I saw this familiar face that is my cousin's. Aki, I was so happy. And even him, he was just as equally shocked to see me, because like, what? I didn't expect that I would find you. What are you doing here? Of course, I appeared in the stories, and that is the way I found my way home. There are two ways there. Is that correct? Anyway, that's how I found my way home on that specific day. So kama kawaida, na nilisema bibia wa Jesus asinisikie nikisema hivyo, I'm not just beating stories. Of course, I have a lesson because duh. And here is the lesson that I have from that story. You see, the thing is, my father had given me guidelines on surviving the city. But on this specific day, those guidelines felt more restricting than helpful. Not because they were not good guidelines, of course they were good guidelines, but because I was so stuck on following them to the dot. I was so fearful that if I asked for directions, I will end up being robbed, or I will end up even more lost. I'll end up in someone's house, as my dad had clearly scared me. I was operating from a place of fear. I was operating from a place of, I want to be obedient, I don't want to get lost, and I'm fearful that if I do this will happen. And in the same way, sometimes that's how the Bible feels. It feels like this book of do's and don'ts. And sometimes those do's and don'ts are more restricting. They kind of feel more restricting than helpful. And most people have gotten stuck in trying to do everything that is written in the Bible and do it right. And of course, in that way, because we are humans and you can't do everything right, then they get stuck in the fact that sikufanya hivi, so now I'm suffering these consequences because I didn't do this. And they have forgotten the reasons as to why God gave us those guidelines. In the same way that my father gave me guidelines to surviving Nairobi because he loved me so much and he did not want any harm coming my way, is the same way that God gave us those guidelines for our own goods. For our own good, that because he loved us so much and he did not want any harm to come our way. But let me pose a question, and this is probably the question I should have asked myself on that day. Which one do I think was more important to my father or to my dad? When I say father, it sounds like God. My dad was dad. Which one was more important to him? That I have a good relationship with him, that I am safe, or that I didn't carry extra cash to town? That I have a good relationship with him, that I'm safe, or that I didn't ask direction from a random stranger? It would be good and great if I listened to his guidelines and followed them. But it was more important for him that I had a good relationship with him and that I was safe. That was the bottom line. That was the most important thing for him. Sometimes I feel like if we did the same for the Bible, if we asked ourselves, which one do you think is more important to God? That you follow the do's and don'ts to the T and make sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted and whatever, or that you actually allow him to be your friend, to be your father, and to be your Lord? Trust me, the latter is the most important to God. That is the one that he's most interested in. God is most interested in being your friend. He's most interested in being your father and being your Lord than he is interested in whether you can be able to do these do's and don'ts and to follow these guidelines. In the same way, remember that God loves us and he's his only reason for giving us the guidelines is because it was compelled and motivated by love. Just the love that he has for us. And he knew that if my children were to do this, they would be great, they would be fine, then they would be blessed, they would prosper, there would be this and there would be this. It was compelled purely by love. So my challenge for myself and for you, if you have yet not started watching the 8 videos, actually the way I'm pushing these videos, you'd think I have shares, or even those people know me, they don't know me. I just really found them really helpful. So if you haven't started, please do start. And this, because I feel like this is the easiest way for us to understand the bigger picture and to understand this love, to seek to understand this love that God has for us. Just like last week, I will leave a whole link to the video and even the link to the weekly readings that will help you prepare to watch the videos. So the thing is, if I had understood, guy, kila video. If I had understood that my dad's bottom line was that I be safe, it would have freed me from the fear that I had of disobeying, from the fear that I had of bad things would have happened to me. And as a matter of fact, probably it would have been easier for me to find my way back home then, because if I understood that he just wants me to be safe, then I would have found an easier way or a safer way to ask for directions. Ngena niulize soja, ama nienda niingie kwa building niulize, like I would have actually found an easier way to ask for directions. Because people ask for directions on a daily basis, not to say that just usiulize direction because you will. As in, if I had gotten it, that his bigger picture, his bottom line was that I be safe, it would have been more freeing than liberating. And it's the same way. If you understand the bigger picture and the bottom line for God that God has, it will free you more than it will limit us. It will free us. It frees us to understand the love that God has for us. So that's my challenge for us, that we actually start watching these videos and we start interacting with the Word of God and we start understanding the love that God has for us. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I really appreciate you for watching till the end. See you next week. Much love for me. This has been Reflections by Keji Kamore. Toodles!